The goal of today's conversation is just to dive a little bit deeper into our career focused programs. So, my name is Mike. I'm a program director here. I'm also one of our hiring directors. I've been working in the summers with Putney Student Travel since 2007 and full time since 2012. So, this is my 14th season hiring our summer staff and creating and managing all of the programs that we run in the summer. My background's in biology. And so the majority of the programs that I've led with Putney and our collaborators over the year have been kind of career focused or thematic programs, mostly around marine science, which is where my background and my passion comes in. And so kind of uniquely positioned to chat a little bit today about these programs. Now, the word career, I understand, can maybe be a little daunting for a freshman, sophomore, junior, even a senior in high school. Career is a big word, and at that age, you don't really know what you necessarily want to do when you grow up. But these programs are just kind of theme-based programs that give students an opportunity to learn a little bit more about what it's like to work in the field in a hands-on environment under these specific themes, and have leaders and experts that join the program to give their insight, their unique perspectives, and to really offer our students a one-on-one opportunity to ask questions about how did your path get you to where you are? This is what I'm thinking, and kind of workshop some of those ideas. We offer a wide range of career focused programs. They're all about 2 weeks long. They all have at least a two, if not three-person leadership team that's with the students 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, facilitating the program, adding content. They will have background knowledge in the theme of the program. And then in addition, every program is joined by an expert, depending on the destination, anywhere from maybe 4 to 6 days, maybe 7 days, where they're living right alongside the students, eating the meals together, doing the activities together, and doing both formal and informal presentations throughout the course of the program for students to kind of learn about their backgrounds. So everything from climate and conservation in Baja, Belize, polar bears in the Canadian Arctic, sea turtles in Costa Rica. Today, we'll talk a little bit more specifically about the climate program in Iceland. We also offer creative writing focused, farm to table, sustainable food systems in Italy, photography specific in Yellowstone, and then even more kind of science and business intensive, learning about the future of autonomous and electric vehicles in Germany and Sweden, engineering at MIT in Boston, going to the CERN particle accelerator in Switzerland. And we're also going to touch on the Washington, D.C. to Houston program today with Dr. Lau. So that's kind of a quick overview of what those programs look like. Full write-ups on our website, more information, photos. We can put you in touch with families that have traveled with us in the past as well. So just to dive in, I'll ask Graham to unmute. Here's a photo of him in Iceland with our students from a few years ago. Graham has led 2 programs to Iceland with us as a leader, twice on the DC to Houston program, once on our MIT engineering and technology program. He's also led our CERN program, all going back to 2018. And this summer, Graham is slated to be the expert, joining for about 4 or 5 days on the DC to Houston program specifically. So I'd love, Graham, tell us a little bit about kind of your background, your qualifications, and a little bit about yourself to get started.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mike. And thanks everyone for tuning in, for those watching later as well in the recording. Super excited for the chance to work with the students and families who are tuning in for this webinar. I am Dr. Lau, so I do have a PhD. I went through many years in college not knowing exactly what I wanted to do. And I'll admit, even now, I'm not exactly sure what I want to do when I grow up. But I did know in college that I really love science. And so I ended up earning degrees in biology and chemistry, spent some time studying astrophysics, working in a geomicrobiology laboratory, and did a PhD in geology. But my primary career field is something called astrobiology, trying to understand the nature of life in the universe and looking for aliens too. And of late, these last few years, a lot of my work is more in the realms of philosophy and psychology. And so I've kind of spanned a large breadth of human understanding and knowledge of how we understand our place in the universe And along the way, I've had some really remarkable experiences traveling to places around the planet to do science, to do field geology, planetary field geology. I was funded by NASA over a decade ago now to travel to the high Arctic near the North Pole and do some research for my PhD. I've done research related to sites in Oman and Hawaii and other places around the planet. And I also have just a fond love for Iceland in general, so I'm really glad I've had a chance to lead there and also to be involved in trips related to the science that I do, including the DC to Houston aerospace trip.
Sorry, trying to unmute. Thanks, Graham. That's a great intro. I will mention that there is, for those of you joining us, there is a chat feature. If you have any questions whatsoever as we go through this, either about the programs for Dr. Lau, for our admissions process, drop them into the chat. We can have a few minutes at the end for some Q&A. So that's open for those questions. I know I'm a product of summer travel when I was a teen. I was the kind of kid that never wanted to go to summer camp, not even a day camp. And then something in me around freshman, sophomore year of high school was like, I want to get out of the bubble that I grew up in outside Cleveland, Ohio. I want to try new things. I want to meet new people. Something clicked for me that I was like, I need to get out of my comfort zone a little bit, whatever it was. And so I actually traveled on a 3 week long summer program to England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales with a group of, there were probably about 20 of us like-minded peers, seeing the sights, learning the culture, eating the food, visiting a lot of different places. We did some homestays on that program. And that is one experience that I had for me that like pinpointed my love for travel and getting out there and meeting new people, trying new things, getting out of my comfort zone. And that is one of the reasons why I'm kind of still working in this realm of summer travel because I know firsthand the impact that it had on me. I'm wondering, Graham, if you can share, did you have any experiences when you were in middle school, high school that kind of piqued this curiosity and led you down the path of biology, astrobiology, travel, things like that?
Well, I'll admit I was quite jealous of those who did have pretty incredible experiences in middle school and high school. I did get out though. I went on my own with friends to go places, to go surfing and go mountain biking. I spent a lot of time in the Appalachian Mountains as a young person. I would jump in my car and go disappear into the mountains and get lost for some time. I had these really remarkable people in my life, really great mentors who helped me learn a lot in the sciences, but I didn't really start having the travel experiences to do my science and my learning and to meet other people and other cultures until I was in college. But even then, the experiences were remarkable. I did an internship as an undergraduate student in Rhode Island at the Graduate School of Oceanography and had a chance to go out on a boat and do some scientific studies in the Narragansett Bay. I met Robert Ballard, who found the Bismarck and Titanic boats famously, and thought I would do marine biology for a while as well. And so those were incredible experiences, but I do see the value in these experiences at a younger age, and I'm glad to have the chance to be a guide on the side while these young people are kind of experiencing these things themselves.
Mm. Yeah, I think yeah, for me, I always kind of lean toward the sciences, but then I had a couple of teachers in high school and my biology professors in college that definitely solidified for me, like, this is what I want to do. And I think one of the benefits of students traveling on our programs is that we give a structured way for students to explore these themes. Is this something that I want to do or not want to do? And, there's an experience that I had leading a group of students through Putney in Belize on a marine science program. We were out on a boat one day, and we were cutting up fish. The students were like cutting up fish, frozen mackerel, to put into a net, to drop to the bottom of the ocean, to attach a camera to, and basically see what kind of animals we came in. Very cool technology, ROV kind of thing. And I had a student in that moment that was like, you know what? I think I'm realizing that field research is not what I want to do, because she didn't like cutting up fish out on a boat in the sea. And I feel like there's both the benefit of learning what you want to do, but also kind of figuring out what you might not want to do. And that helps just as much focus. And I wonder, Graham, if you've seen either through other educational opportunities that you've done or on our programs, that kind of like those experiences for students that you've kind of like helped lead them through? Do you have anything similar about like that transformation that you've seen from a student between day one and day 14 on a program?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in all the trips I've led, I've seen transformations in our students, some in discovering that they can push themselves when they're in outdoor situations, doing long hikes or experiencing weather maybe they weren't really ready for in their lives previously. I've also seen some students where maybe they found something new that kind of inspired them towards maybe a direction for their career, or maybe found that they didn't like something. Some of the trips we have do focus on things like robotics or coding or physics. And some students, they think they might want to explore those realms, but they find out along the way, maybe it was more the engineering side of it that they were interested in, or the computer science side of it that they were interested in. And so that helps a lot, I think, for those students having that breadth of experiences on each of these
Mm,
trips, being exposed to a number of different topics within one larger theme. It can help the students, I think, when they're kind of just figuring out where they might want to go after high school, what kinds of decisions they might make towards their careers.
yep. Yeah, I think that's a really great point, and it kind of talks about the group dynamic on the program as well, because most of these programs are maybe 14, 16 students. They're coming from all over the country. Some of our students travel from internationally to join these programs, and going on like a career themed program, I think attracts a lot of like-minded people. So a student that's in their hometown with the same group of kids that they've gone through elementary school, middle school, high school with, all of a sudden get exposed to, 14, 15 other kids from all over the country who are different but the same because they kind of bond over this shared interest of conservation, geothermal energy, robotics, turtle conservation, whatever it may be. And so I think it's really important for students to be able to see, oh, like there are other kids like me out there excited about the sciences or whatever it may be. Maybe, I don't know, Graham, if you could share a little bit about your experience, because we put a lot, Putney as an organization puts a lot of emphasis, not just on the theme of the program, but that group dynamic as well, that like hanging out with a set of peers that don't know each other. Maybe you can touch a little bit on your experience, like watching that group dynamic um, kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
come
For us as
together.
leaders, it's really important for us to, one, support developing the group dynamic and trying to help students. Some students are a bit more outgoing at first, some are maybe a bit more reserved. Trying to help everyone find their place in the group to speak to each other is really important for our experiences. And so usually in the very beginning of our trips, we're really focused. I mean, we have it throughout the trip, but really in the very beginning, we're helping the students to figure out how they all fit together and can work together throughout the trip for the various experiences we have. We do have experiences in the career trips that I've led that are really focused on the science or the engineering, the things the students are learning. But then we also have other experiences where we're just getting out, we're trying new foods, meeting new kinds of people, learning about a culture or a place, or having outdoor experiences, going for a long hike or doing some exercise together, doing some stargazing together, whatever it is. And so finding ways to help the students be able to share what they're interested in and their passions together, and have a safe area to do that in as a group, I think is really important for us as leaders. And so for all of our leaders across Putney, from all the trips I've led, plus I've met most of the other leaders as well, I think, we have a really great group of people who've led these trips, who are leading these trips in the future, who have that interest in trying to help all of our students to become not just part of the group, but also a better part of themselves.
Yeah, and that's, I think Graham is a really great example of what our leaders are like. As a hiring director here, we hire a couple hundred staff every summer to lead these programs. 70% of our leaders come back year after year to continue working with us. Like I said, Graham's led, I don't know, 6 or 8 programs with us already over the years. And these are people that are passionate about the place, the culture, the language, and the theme of the program. But these are people that really want to be around middle and high school students for 3 weeks of their summer. As I said before, our leaders are living right alongside the students 24 hours a day, managing the group dynamic, the health and safety, and being peers, mentors, and role models. A lot of the students that travel with us, especially those that are on their first Putney program, they might be so used to their teacher, their principal, their parent, their coach. And this is an opportunity for these students to interact with role models and adults that don't know that much about them. And you have to like form this bond. And that's a really interesting place, I think, for high school students to be with like an adult like Graham that cares for them and their experience and their success. And oftentimes we find that that bleeds past the end of the program. So I know I have plenty of anecdotes myself from leading trips over the years, but I was just talking to Graham before this about ways that he's kept in touch with students, or students have reached back out to him a year, 2 years later. I don't know if you have any anecdotes to share about that kind of like continued mentorship.
Yeah, in a few places. Sometimes on these trips, we really do make really tight connections with these students so that they can reach out. Sometimes it's a year or 2 years or even 3 or 4 years later, and they might have a question about a direction in their career, or they're just looking for some friendship from someone that they can identify with and understand, knows part of who they are. And so I've had those really cool conversations. A student is always welcome to reach out after a trip to me. Many of my students do remain in contact via WhatsApp and we chat from time to time. And also because of the kinds of trips I've led that are career focused, somewhat more science focused generally. I've also had students reach out to ask for support for getting into college, for instance. So I write good letters of recommendation for my students when they request them. I'm always happy to do that for really good students and their families. I just recently had a student who just got accepted into college, and my co-lead and I on the trip that that student was on wrote a letter, which was pretty awesome. Also, in the past, on the DC to Houston trip in particular, there's an experience the students get in Houston at Johnson Space Center where they do this project of building and developing a heat shield to experience what spacecraft would go through when re-entering the Earth. And I've now had a few students from those past trips reach out asking for images or video or even just information about what the project was because they want to include that in their college application essays.
That's great. Yeah. And we want these experiences to definitely impact our students in meaningful ways. And many of them often do write college essays about their experience on our programs. And in fact, I think early next week, it might be on Monday, Putney's actually doing another webinar with a college admittance counselor to talk kind of about that dynamic as well, which is really interesting. I know I've had students that have met on programs that I led that ended up rooming together in college or studying marine science at Duke or whatever it might be. Um, I will mention again, if you have any questions as we go, drop them into the chat. I'm kind of keeping an eye on that on the side here. But let's spend maybe a few minutes now talking about particularly Iceland and the DC to Houston program, which Graham has touched on. He's led both of them. He'll be the expert on DC to Houston this summer. But this picture right here that's up on the screen, I think is a good example. All of our programs, my colleagues here are the ones that coordinate these programs year round. So making reservations, talking to outfitters, vetting people that we're working with, making sure that all the transportation that we have is safe and vetted and all of those things. And you can see in this picture, we're all wearing helmets. Safety is our top priority. Graham, can you speak a little bit to this picture? This is in Iceland, but what do we have going on here?
So this picture in particular is at a geothermal power plant. So the students on the Iceland trip are learning about climate change and sustainability in the environment. They're also learning about the topic of climate change and the ways that we're impacting our world. So they're learning at this geothermal energy plant about renewable energy sources. So most of Iceland, for instance, uses geothermal energy and geothermal heating for their buildings, for their infrastructure. It's also part of why electricity is so cheap in Iceland, which the students have a large conversation about as well, about things like smelting aluminum, which happens in Iceland, about data centers for AI, which is now happening a lot in Iceland. And so we have a larger societal conversation there. But in this picture in particular, right behind us, inside that little igloo kind of geodesic dome appearing structure, is an injection well site at the geothermal plant. So it's where they're tapping into this superheated water in the subsurface down below. There's a pipe inside of that building that goes down below, and you can see the large pipe coming off of it. This is not just where they're extracting these high temperature fluids to drive the geothermal plant that's kind of off in the distance, not in this image, unfortunately. But also at the exact site that we're at in this picture, they're doing something called carb fix. So this is a process right now that we're doing around the planet as geologists and environmental scientists. We're exploring how can we take carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere? And there's various ways that we can do that. Living organisms do it, plants and trees, they breathe in carbon dioxide. We could be able to use the oceans, for instance, to do this. But one way to do it, like we see in this picture, is by using the rock itself to draw in carbon dioxide and then re-injecting that carbon that we're creating new rock out of into the subsurface. And so the well that's behind us in that picture, the students are actually learning about this process that we call carbon sequestration. So how could we take carbon out of the atmosphere and put it back into the earth?
Cool. And that I think is a really indicative example of the fact that our programs are hands-on, experiential out in the field. You're not sitting in a classroom, you're not, taking notes or doing homework or getting quizzed or tested on anything. These are opportunities for students to see firsthand, regardless if we're in Baja or Iceland or the Canadian Arctic, the science that's going on, working with professionals, not just our leaders and the expert, but we every place we go, we meet with somebody local that's going to give their own take on everything. And then we're going to go for a hike. So these are very hands-on, experiential, out of the classroom. That's the whole point. And the students really get to experience it firsthand. What do we have going on here?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So on the Iceland trip, the students get a number of incredible experiences learning about the science, the issues like climate change and sustainable energy, renewable energies for our futures. They learn about the past of Iceland. We talk about Viking history and Norse language and things like that. But the students also get a lot of outdoor adventure experience. Iceland is it's one of those remarkable countries. I think everyone should visit at some point. Just the vistas outside in Iceland are incredible. You can experience so many landscapes. And in this picture in particular, the students, so we're on the rock right here, but we're just about to go and hike that glacier behind us. This is Snæfellsnes Peninsula, just north of Reykjavik in Iceland. The students go out and they hike on a glacier. And so you can see we kind of have our ice axes and stuff here with us, our ski poles. The students put on crampons. We all rope off together. And then we go out onto the glacier with well-trained glacial experts. I'm also a glaciologist, but we have glacier experts with us as well. And we go out onto the glacier so the students can talk about glaciology, how glaciers form, how they melt and are melting around the planet. And they also just have that really remarkable, unique experience of doing a glacier trek, which few people have had a chance to do in their lives.
Yeah. And with the retreat of glaciers in general all over the world, you kind of got to get out there and do it while we
Got to
still
do it.
can. And Graham mentioned it, but I'll just reiterate, this is a perfect example where we use an outfitter, all of the safety gear, the poles, you can see everybody's got harnesses around their legs, all of that kind of stuff. The people that we work with, again, safety is our top priority. So really great opportunity. And, in addition to really diving into the theme of the program, and using that as a lens for everything that we do. Our programs are also fun. So whether that's playing games, throwing frisbees around, going out to eat, going to see various shows. I think in Iceland we go, we take a dip in the Blue Lagoon, the iconic Blue Lagoon, and cover ourselves in mud. We go to a lava show where we actually see like live lava flowing and learn about that. Before we move to DC to Houston, just for time, any last thoughts, Graham, on why a student might choose to go to Iceland this summer, some of the highlights?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much. The food is incredible. The people are awesome. Like I said, the students will learn a little bit about Norse history and the Vikings. They'll learn about the landforms across Iceland. And one thing I really like is that all of our students in these trips that I've led, they work on a project, an independent or sometimes a group project. And the students are always so creative in what they come up with and want to work on. And we allow them a large range of what they want to study or experience. We're not focused on the project the whole time. But they do put a little bit of time in to share some topic about the trip with each other. And so I've seen some incredible things. Students have done dance or they've created artwork to share the experience. This past year in the Iceland trip, one of our students was not only really into birds, but was also really into art. And so for their project, they created a journal of every single bird that we saw on our trip. And then they drew a silhouette of every single bird and then shared that with us so we could see all the different kinds of birds and the different structures they had in their bodies. It was a really incredible project.
Yeah, it's a really good point. So independent projects are a through line that exist on all of our programs, not just career. I tend to call them like more passion projects because it is what sparks curiosity in the student, whether they know before they come on the program or something that they learn or do or discover during the trip that they're like, oh, that's curious. I want to dig into this a little bit more, whether it's through their art or their music or their PowerPoint or whatever it is. And then the leaders kind of help facilitate that. They can sit down and interview contacts along the way. And so it really is something that the student has that they can share with the group and then their families when they get back home at the end. Um, all right, let's move for the last few minutes here. Again, I don't have any questions yet, but if you have any, drop them in there. DC to Houston, this is a program that starts in Washington, DC, with access to a lot of the Smithsonian assets, the Air and Space Museum, the Udvar Hazy, but we also explore DC a little bit. We spend a couple of days out in the Shenandoah Valley to do some stargazing, some hiking, build some model rockets. And then we end in Houston, which of course, Johnson Space Center, Space Station Command, things like that. Graham's led this program. He'll be the expert this summer. Maybe tell us a little, where are we here in this photo?
Yeah, I mean, so it's an incredible program for one. This is an image from the Air and Space Museum. The students, so the primary focus of this trip is aerospace. In two real main larger areas, the students learn about early flight, and so they'll go to the Air and Space Museum, the National Aerospace Museum, on the Mall in DC, and they'll learn about the history of flight there with the Wright Flyer from the Wright brothers. They'll learn about the history of aircraft, how we've improved the airfoil over time and built jet engines eventually, and other things like that. They'll also travel out to the Udvar Hazy Center, which is where we have a lot more of the aircraft. There's a space shuttle there, an SR-71 Blackbird, which is one of my favorite things inside the whole building. There's incredible spacecraft and aircraft there. And so this is, not just for students who want to maybe want to be pilots or maybe study aerospace engineering or astrophysics or want to be astronauts. This is for students who kind of in any way are really interested in jobs in the aerospace arena, which it can include all kinds of things. There's lots of engineering jobs and careers where knowing about these structures can help a lot. Doing things like air traffic control, working on airplanes as a mechanic. There's a lot of different jobs that involve knowledge of these things. But also, I've had students on this trip who just really just like airplanes or they really like rockets and they just want to learn more. And so that's cool too. Like we love it all. And the DC to Houston trip, I think the structure is laid out so well because we start in DC, we learn, we go to the castle from the Smithsonian and the Air and Space Museum, which, is opening up more and more. It was closed for a while for renovation. And now that it's open, it's really incredible. It's worth seeing just to be there. But they learn a little bit about the history of DC, the nation's capital. They go to Arlington National Cemetery. We take them to places like the memorials for the Challenger and Columbia space shuttle disasters. And they have important experience understanding how we memorialize these people who've given their lives to our nation and to, adventuring and learning more about who we are as a species. They do go to the Udvar Hazy Center and see all these remarkable aircraft, and we have conversations about the history from early flight to better engines to jet engines to rocketry. And that kind of sets them up for then going down to Houston to learn about space exploration, about astronautics and things like that at Johnson Space Center. But I also love that we have that little Shenandoah part right in the middle because the students get this kind of experience to go stargazing, to be outside together in the woods. They meet with an ecologist and do a little ecological hike, which is really incredible. The chance to build some rockets together. I had to look over because I have my version of the rocket, but it's too far for me to run and grab here. But when I've done the trip, I've also built my own rockets, and then we ship them back to ourselves. And so the students at the end of the trip, they'll have their rockets back at home when they get home again that they built on the trip. And so, yeah, it's a nice little break in the middle, and then they go down to Houston, where they do things like touring. So in this picture on the left there, they go touring at Johnson Space Center, and they learn about the spacecraft that we're building, the robotic missions that we're developing, the things that we're doing right now in astronautics. And so it really is like an all-around trip learning about aerospace, and that's both sides of that, the aero side and the space side of it as well.
Absolutely. Just listening to you talk and your passion for that program is great. I mean, here's a beautiful photo to end on of the nation's capital. But yeah, really amazing opportunities again for kids to get hands-on and dig a little bit deeper into things that they're curious about or that they already know that they're passionate about. As we wrap up here, I don't have any questions. We're available, at least in the chat, Myself and my colleagues here in our offices in Vermont are open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. You can give us a call, chat about our programs. You can go on to our website, goputney.com, to learn more about itineraries, date, tuition, scholarship opportunities, all of our health and safety protocols, which again is our top priority. Learn a little bit more about our experts, our leaders, bios, all of that. Our website's pretty comprehensive. But we're also here to talk. Like, we love to connect with our families. My colleagues Juliana and Gregorio coordinate the Iceland program, so they'll be able to tell you specifics about the itinerary, our hostels, who we work with, all of that kind of stuff. And then my colleague Devin coordinates the DC to Houston program. I kind of oversee a bunch of it, so you can also let me know if there's, you can reach out and ask for me. I'm happy to chat anytime. Programs this time of year are starting to fill. I think this is really the time of year when families like yourselves are sitting down and thinking about the summer now that the holidays and things are behind us. So we would encourage you to start those applications soon if that's of interest. Again, Graham, thanks so much for taking your time to chat with us about these programs that you're obviously very knowledgeable and passionate about. Any last thoughts from you before we close things out here about your experience working with us?
Yeah, sure. I mean, one, I love the Putney family, and many of us do feel like it is a family. We keep coming back every year. Those of us who've led these trips come back together every year for our training that we do together in Vermont for Putney Student Travel. It's a chance for all of us to review all the things that we need to know as leaders to make sure that the students are safe and having a fantastic trip. It's also our chance to talk about the exact trips that we're leading and specifics about those with the program managers for those, the directors for those. But also, I think all of us we do this because we really love doing this. We love working with the students, getting to know them, helping them have remarkable experiences. I've been blown away by the leaders I've met who lead the other trips, who had these remarkable worldly experiences. Some of our leaders are incredible photojournalists, some are remarkable writers and artists. Many of our leaders, I guess all of us actually, have traveled the world. Many of us have been to many of the nations across the planet. And we keep coming back because we love doing this and we love experiencing this along with the students and families. Seeing our students grow in these trips is just it's just so remarkable for all of us. And so it's always fun. We come back together every year. Some of the very first things we start talking about with each other is how our trips the last year went and how all of our students were.
Thanks, Graham. Yeah, absolutely. All of our leaders are incredible. Bios are on the website. First aid CPR certified, EMT woofer certified, background checked every year. Again, health and safety, number one priority. But yeah, if you're interested in either of these programs or any other programs that we offer between service, language, campus-based, exploration programs, whatever it is, please give us a call, send us an email, reach out, and we'd love to chat with you and hopefully have your students travel with us this summer. Graham, thank you so much for your time. I'm going to sign us off from here, and we hope to hear from you all soon. Thanks so much.